Spring, the season of romance and apparently age gap romance. Spring 2021 anime season did not just bring us one, but actually two stories about age gaps in relationships, and Koikimo is probably the one that's a little more sketchier, but this is my review of this series, a 12-episode series that aired in the Spring 2021 anime season, so let's jump into this review. Koikimo, or It's Disgusting to Call This Love, pretty much opens up with a 27-year-old office worker named Yuro, and he's currently kind of tired and a little bit worn out, and as he nearly falls down a flight of stairs, a 17-year-old high schooler named Ichika rushes up to him and grabs him with her umbrella cane and ends up keeping him from falling. And as she kind of realizes that he's a little bit in a daze, that he probably hasn't eaten anything, she offers him her lunch and then runs off. And then later on, as Ryo, this office worker, eventually goes to visit his family's home, he ends up bumping into this girl again because this girl ends up being the friend of his little sister who's in high school still. And he quickly kind of turns on his little bit of charm. You find out that he's kind of a womanizer. He likes to, pick up women, take them home, and sleep with them, and then kind of ditch them the next morning. He kind of tries to charm Ichika, and she quickly shoots him down. She calls him creepy. And her ability to kind of shoot through him and past his charms ends up kind of striking him good, I guess. He kind of likes it. Like, this girl just sees right through me. She kind of talks down to me. I like this. So he quickly confesses his love to her. And again, she kind of finds this creepy. Like, you're 27-year-old, you're creepy. This doesn't stop him. He continues to relentlessly pursue her over the days, as every day he seems to send her presents. He calls her on a regular basis, all to kind of confess his love to her and continue to pursue her, even though, again, she keeps kind of going, you're creepy, leave me alone. And what this ends up kind of turning into is both the story of Ichika and Ryo as this love is blossoming. Ryo is very much stubborn and he keeps pursuing. Like, this is my soulmate. He just believes this girl is his soulmate. Obviously, there is a little bit of a hint of the idea of, look, you can't be chasing after high schoolers. This doesn't look good. But he still does it. This is his kind of stubbornness that this is who he's going to pursue. And you kind of get a sense through the eyes of his sister that he hasn't really always had a good life. You obviously see that he's always kind of sleeping with a bunch of women. He doesn't really have any kind of bonds to anybody. He doesn't want to pursue anybody romantically. He seemed to have had some issues with his father when he was younger. But it seems like his encounter with Ichika has kind of changed him a little bit. And Ryo kind of notices this. His sister notices this. And again, on the other side of the whole thing, you have Ichika, who's kind of, again, being bothered by the fact that he keeps pushing against her, but at the same time, slowly seeing the kinder side of him. Like, there's some little nice things that he does. Like, she gets sick at some point, and he wants to take care of her. And then he brings her this kind of study guide to help her get caught up in school because she's been sick. So these little nice little kind of sweet things that he does that kind of make him kind of charming. But at the same time, she does have her own life at school. She does have a boy that ends up pursuing her. At the same time, Ryo does have a girl that pursues him. So there is these kind of elements of each side has their own, within their age group, relationships that kind of seem to be blossoming. But at the same time, there's this continued expression going back and forth between the two of them. So yeah, my thoughts on Koikimo. I guess to start things out, visually, it's fine. It's not really trying to do anything incredible. It's just kind of bare bones, things move, characters don't look too terrible. It looks visually okay. On the other side, the audio is not good. Especially early on, it seemed like they were having a lot of issues with the audio, really balancing levels of characters' voices. Music was extremely loud. Just the balancing on the audio is not good at all. The series has always had that issue from the beginning to the end. The character audio themselves seem to have improved with certain characters, but other characters like Ryo and Kai, they never seen any kind of improvement. It really did sound like these two characters were always recorded through, I don't know, remotely or just through a can. I made the joke on our podcast that it almost sounded as if they were talking into cans with strings on them because it had that really kind of canned muffled voice to them. And it never improved. I do like the seiyus themselves. I think they did a good job of almost being normal. Like, these characters sound normal. They don't sound like they're trying to act. It just sounds like this is their normal everyday talking. Whereas, again, I don't necessarily mind that with other series and characters being like more overly expressive with their voices. It's just, it sounded normal. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think it actually worked. But at the same time, it didn't sound good. It was a very muffled and kind of unsettling sound to these characters' voices that never really repaired itself throughout the entire series. Now, the story itself, I will say, putting myself aside from the fact that there is a 10-year gap here, and not necessarily just the fact that it's 10-year gap, but one being still in high school, which is one of those troubling taboo ideas. It's easy to say, a 40-year-old going out with a 30-year-old, but it's harder to say a 27-year-old going out with a 17-year-old. Putting that aside, I found the series charming. I really did think it was sweet. I love this idea of this guy pursuing relentlessly this girl, and her eventually kind of realizing this is a kind of a nice guy. Maybe I do have feelings for him. And the kind of almost puppy nature of him as he's constantly waiting for some kind of sign of, returning this love. And it did break my heart as they started to get into more side characters that obviously find the main two appealing, and the kind of struggles that you are obviously going to face with that sense of, I have somebody I'm already interested in, and yet they still want to pursue. And even though they kind of hint at some side and back history stuff to Rio, I felt very underwhelmed by what they ended up presenting in the end. It didn't really feel like there was much thought put into him. Yeah, you did kind of get into his relationship with his father, but it didn't really feel like it explained it well enough of, why do I care? It's kind of seemed like it turned into just this is a strict father, and that's really it. It didn't really feel like it got into anything interesting. I mean, they even had one point where Rio was kind of warning somebody, look, my brother can be dangerous, so you might want to stay away from her. And it's like this element of a threat there that never really turned anything or was really explained. It's just that I guess he was grumpy when he was younger. That's it. There's nothing really else there. It wasn't he was in a gang. It wasn't that he did something terrible and this is what would, implant this idea into his sister. It just seemed like he just had a lot of disputes with his dad, and that's really it. So I felt very underwhelmed with what they ended up doing with the characters themselves, and we really got very little with Ichika herself, other than the fact that she likes light novels and anime. That's really it. So the characters themselves, unfortunately, didn't really get much development. They didn't really have much behind them. Not much to their backstories themselves. Nothing to really kind of write off of. Just that Ryo's chasing after Ichika, and Ichika keeps saying he's creepy. Now, again, the elephant in the room, right over there behind me. Yes, the age gap issue. Higehiro obviously was this season as well, along with Koikimo. And I think Higehiro obviously was more of a serious drama. And I think it handled it respectfully. Whereas I think Koikimo, sort of. It's like this element of, it's not necessarily that he's on top of her and he's pushing himself physically on her. He's just, giving her gifts and calling her and talking to her. So it's not as if he's actually physically with her. And I think that element kind of makes it okay. Not that it's okay, but more of the idea that it's not offensive to me to watch. I just felt it kind of, charming that he's pursuing her. Now, granted, the issue really comes in the ending itself. I'm surprised he didn't end up jailed for the ending, but that's really where my problem lies. It's like, I like that they were going in a respectful way in the very end, but then Rio does something that's like, he should be arrested right now. But even still, there's a lot of conundrum there. There is a difficulty there. This is the taboo idea. Taboo aside, it's a charming series with very little to get into the characters themselves, with bad audio. As a taboo story, I don't think it really did much with it. It really, honestly, didn't touch on the taboo to tell a story. It didn't touch on the taboo to send a message. It didn't touch on the taboo in a way that was impactful. It was just almost like an excuse to have these two with an age gap and the romance behind that. So that's kind of where I sit in the end. It was a charming, cute series with a couple of really cute moments. with a lot of the little issues that are really kind of pulling it down in quality and in storytelling. But if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. Koikimo, again, a series in the spring 2021 anime season. If you like this review, please leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the series, or if you're going to check it out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can, and y'all take care.